Morning, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here. This is Mr. Rosine here, and my plan today is we're going to talk about economic systems. And so I want to talk you through the notes that you have in Schoology on a PowerPoint, but I'm going to walk you through this as well. So first of all, you're going to take the economics note sheet, and this is going to go into Notability. So please make sure you get that into Notability, and this is where you will take your notes on. All right, if you look at this. Then I'm going to talk you through the notes that go along with this. So here we go. First of all, I want to, at the very top of your note sheet, you will see kind of a box here that talks about, it says goods and services. And I'd like you to fill this out. Goods, when we talk about goods today, we're talking about any products that are made, kind of our stuff. Shirts, video games, phones, desks, cars, TVs, you name it. When we talk about services, we're talking about jobs. All right, so think of any job that anyone can have. That's what we're talking about. Okay. All right, so let's go through. So if we talk about what's a good definition for the term economy? Well, it's activities related to the production and distribution of goods and services in a region or country. All right, so if we break this down a little bit, what we're saying is that it's activities related to the making, all right, and the distribution of goods, our stuff, and our jobs, all right, services in a region or country. So what an economy looks at is it looks at what a country makes, and it looks at what jobs countries have. In the world, there are four economic systems that are found: traditional, command, market, and mixed. And a little heads up, you will later on be reading about these four, and you will eventually be choosing one of these for your island, just to give you a heads up. All right, as we move on, one of the terms that you're going to hear a lot about is GDP, or gross domestic product. It sounds really complicated, but actually it's not. What gross domestic product, it's a definition, it's a term, and what it does is it takes all of the goods made in a country. So again, any product, you name it, a shirt, jeans, a newspaper, TV, pens, pencils, anything made in the country, plus all of the services or the jobs, so the salaries that people earn. So any salary that anyone earns, and you add them up, all right? Yes, you are correct if you're thinking, oh my goodness, Mr. Rosine, that could be billions and trillions of dollars. Yes, it is. All right? It is more useful when we actually divide it by each person. We call it capita, all right? And it gives us kind of a good sense of what is each person's share of the economy. The bigger the number, the stronger the economy is. So I have a chart here. You don't have to write this down, all right? But here we go. The latest that I found, ours is $19.3 trillion. All right, let's just give you a heads up here. You can see we're in 1998 where we were located. All right, this is the per capita GDP by the world. And then we have our top 10 countries. 2016 is the closest that I could find, but let's take a look at it. Luxembourg has very high per capita GDP, and you may be thinking, my goodness, Mr. Rosine, that's a small country. It is. So they have very high goods that are made, but what we dividing by? We're dividing by their population. They have a small population, all right? And here we go by state, all right? Minnesota's pretty healthy. Our per capita GDP, we're right around that 55,000 to 60,000, all right? North Dakota is very high, and it always surprises people. But two things going on in North Dakota. Lots of oil, good, right? And their population in North Dakota is very small. So you're dividing by a small number to get your per capita GDP. One of the things that we use to determine prices in a market economy is called supply and demand. All right, what supply and demand is it looks at it and it says that in a market, the price of a good will vary or change, all right, until the demand that people want equals the amount that's supplied or made by a company. All right, when they equal each other, that's good. So for example, all right, if Apple makes iPhones, they have a demand. When the demand by the consumers for the iPhone and the supply is equal, that's perfect. That's when the economy is very happy, all right? But where prices can change is all of a sudden if there's too much demand, too much supply, or not enough demand and not enough supply. So let's take a look here. All right, if demand for a product is low, then the price will drop. I'm looking at my neighbor's snowmobiles here out the window. All right, they have two snowmobiles, and I'm looking at them, and they bought them this past summer. Why? Because there was no demand for them, consumers didn't want them, and so the prices were lower. I guarantee you, if they went after the snowstorm this past weekend, guess what their price might be. It might be the opposite. That's why they bought them in the summer. If demand for a product is high, then the price will increase. My example here is a brand new iPhone. When iPhone comes out with their latest update and their brand new phone, what does it cost? $1,000, $1,200, all right? But eventually, and why? Because the demand, everybody wants it then. But eventually what ends up happening, the price drops, okay? But when it first comes out. Now, this I'm going to use from our pandemic here. If a supply of a product is rare, then the price will increase. Let's think back to last March when we first learned about COVID. Hand sanitizer was very expensive. Stores were charging whatever they could get for it. All right. Some stores actually got in trouble for it by the government because they said, oh, supply is low. And so there wasn't a ton of it. And so what did they do to the prices? They actually raised them quite a bit. Now, if supply of a product is high, then the price will drop. All right. So there's so much of it, then it's going to drop. We also have something called comparative advantage, and that's the ability of a country to produce a good or service at a lower cost. Sometimes some countries can produce things cheaper than we can in the United States. All right, if you are in your room or you're watching this, look at your clothes, right? Why are your clothes made in Bangladesh or China or Sri Lanka? Because of comparative advantage, all right? This is important because it means that some countries can produce goods cheaper than other countries. All right. One example is El Salvador. In El Salvador, they can pay their workers $1 a day to make clothing. Well, in the United States, you would have to pay a minimum wage, somewhere maybe around $10, plus health insurance, plus vacation. That's a lot more money. My other example here is in India, there are call centers. All right, if you ever need customer service help from anything, a lot of times those people are actually in India. Why? Because it's way cheaper. All right, so oftentimes we start to see that plays a role with things. And what it does is it encourages countries to trade with each other. We also know there's other comparative advantages out there. All right, this is in Bangladesh. All right, this is a primary photo here that looks at Bangladesh workers. They make $37 a month. They're making clothes, some of the clothes you might be wearing right now. This is Brazil. All right, Brazil is an attraction for a lot of factories because there's no pollution laws. All right, in the United States, factories have to follow guidelines placed by the government, not in Brazil. So this can happen. All right, a gold mine here where they can throw the wastewater right into the river of the rainforest. So these are some notes for economics. All right, complete that note sheet. And like I said, you will be using this as we eventually start thinking about your ideal economy on your island.